You are listening to Been There, Done That. We present some of the smartest people connected to the business of coffee. People who've succeeded in the tough grind of hospitality by staying ahead of the rest. So join us as we explore the secrets to their success and help you accelerate your business. This show is brought to you by the Coffee Commune, where the coffee community comes to collaborate. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Phillip Di Bella, and you're listening to another episode of Been There and Done That, where we bring people with amazing experience that have got practical experience, not theoretical. We don't have a place for that here on the show. It's all about bringing real life people that have done real life things. That's why we call it Been There and Done That. And today it's one of the topics that I'm very passionate about, which is about customer service, exceeding customer expectation, guest experience, all of the rest of it. And I thought I'd bring in one of the best talents that I know, Mr. Mark Shaw. Mark, welcome to the show. And then
Thank you.
I'll give the listeners a bit of a wrap, and it's an absolute honour. Introduced to me by Dominic Lamb, the Queensland Small Business Commissioner, and I'm very grateful for that introduction.
Likewise.
But Mark Shaw, he's one of Australia's most successful theme park CEOs, and he's known for elevating employee experience to drive customer satisfaction and profit growth. His ACE model, which is amazing customer experiences, has been refined over 30 years with brands like Westfield, Merlin Entertainments, Bounce Inc., and Adventure World. And, of course, applies to any service business. But he did start off in hospitality. And as we know, hospitality is important in every single industry.
Best grounding.
It certainly is. Yes. And that's why we wanted somebody like this here. But something that's a little bit interesting that I want you guys to be across. He was the CEO of Adventure World between 2010 and 2017. And he doubled the attendance and revenue while achieving Australia's highest rated theme park experience on TripAdvisor. And his main focus here was all about guest experience and making sure that people walked away. And if anyone's been to Disneyland and all the different places around the world and all the rest of it, they can understand what that feeling is like. So I've got an expert in front of me. Enough of me talking. Mark, I'm going to kick it off straight away and ask you, why is the guest experience so important?
Thank you for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure to be here, Phil. I think the guest experience is important. There's two responses to this. One is the normal business response that most people think of. And I always ask this question in interviews of candidates because I'm interested to know what their perspective is. It's a bit of a trap because they will tell me what they think I want to hear, and that is, repeat business, referrals, you can charge more for the product, higher barriers to entry and all that kind of stuff. And all of that's 100% true. Of course, it drives business, and I can talk about the statistics. In general, a 5% increase in customer satisfaction will drive double-digit growth in terms of revenue. And I've seen this in my experience very, very, very clearly. If I take the example of Xerox and the importance of a 4-star rating versus a 5-star rating in terms of customer satisfaction.
Yep.
Xerox survey regularly a proportion of their customers every quarter. They've got 480,000 customers. And they ask them on a 1.5 scale, how satisfied are you? The senior management team back in the 90s thought that a 4 or 5 rating was okay. We're happy with that, right? Anything below that was obviously a concern. Until somebody in the analytics department recognized the link between those customers that scored them a 5 versus those that scored them a 4. And they found that the customers that scored them 5 were 6 times more likely to renew their contract. Yeah. And in action, not intention.
Yeah. So whilst the numbers are close, the gap was phenomenally large, right?
Yes. So 4 is a kind of sitting on the fence rating where people go, it's good, but you're not guaranteed loyalty, right?
Yes.
So there's your sort of business response to the question. My sort of more philosophical, humanistic response, and it sort of goes back to the core of me as a, somebody who worked in a kitchen, then became a waiter and a head waiter and a restaurant manager and eventually went into leisure and theme parks and so on. It's this idea that life is short. Life is full of challenges. It's full of great stuff too, but it's got, you got dentists and taxes and relationship problems and sickness and school and exams and the whole thing, if you stop and think about it, which you don't want to do too much because that would be quite negative, but it's actually pretty challenging. So when people get an opportunity to get together with a loved one or some family members or friends or whatever, have a cup of coffee and a slice of cake or go to a theme park or go to a restaurant, these are precious moments, and they're really important in terms of providing balance for people. And it's like a bank account. You've got kind of credit, debit, you've got the negative stuff, and then you've got the positive stuff. So I think that you have a responsibility, and I guess coming from a theme park background where family of 4 might spend $1,000 if they're on top, food and beverage, fast passes, whatever. If they're spending $1,000 to come out for the day and they've saved up for it, you better bloody deliver, right? Because that's a responsibility. And I think if you start from that point, the rest becomes really, really easy.
Yeah.
The business flows, the revenue flows. You got to control the costs, obviously. That's part of business.
And so a big part of what you're saying is be conscious, and it's something that we've always done with our team. So my background's marketing, as you know. And in marketing, we say it's all about telling a story so engaging that people choose you. And the key word there is emotional engaging. And I suppose exactly, reiterating what you're saying is that you need to be conscious that the people that have chosen to show up in your venue, whether it's a cafe, a restaurant, or a theme park, that you need to be conscious that they have a story of why they're there. Yeah. And when they leave, you want it to be that positive emotional engagement. Yeah.
I'll give you a great example, actually, of the pep talk that Bruce Springsteen does before he goes on stage with his team. You know how they get into a huddle and they go around together and they do this. And Bruce will
motivate each other.
Say, just remember, guys, tonight might be someone's first concert. We all remember what that's like. Yeah. It also might be their last.
Yeah. Very powerful, isn't it?
Make sure you do, every moment, every note, bang on. Just give it all the energy you've got. And you know what? I don't know if you've seen Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I haven't seen him live. I've seen his videos. I've seen his live videos, but I haven't seen him live. But
they go long, right?
Yeah. And then I suppose that's the difference, right? That's the guest experience. He's very conscious.
Correct.
You're going to hear that word. You're going to hear for the listeners. You're going to hear the word conscious. You're going to hear the word emotional engagement.
Yes.
He's very conscious of who's going to be in the audience.
Yep.
And it's one of the things when people say to me, "How do you go about public speaking so easily?" And I say, because it's not about me. It's the audience.
And what you're giving them.
What I'm giving and how I'm making them feel or leaving them with the message of, and again, now the listeners can hear pretty quickly why I chose you to come on the show to talk about this concept because, one thing I want to unpack and I want to ask an expert like yourself, what has changed in the last, say, 10, 15 years of what was considered exceptional or, guest experience or customer service? Because I'm not a fan of the words customer service.
No.
It doesn't have a, customer service to me doesn't have a rating, right? What's good to you is different to somebody else. When you start to talk about guest, you humanize it.
Absolutely.
And I talk about exceeding a customer's expectations, which is the foundation of a guest experience.
Yes.
But what's changed in the last, say, 10 or 15 years from the guest point of view of back then to now? And then the second part to that question is, what's changed from the people that are delivering the experience from then to now?
That's a great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I guess things evolve all the time and they get better all the time. If I think about my first car, little Vauxhall Chevette van back in the UK, it had none of the features my current car has, right? The wing mirrors don't rotate down when I'm reversing. Yeah. Right. The steering wheel doesn't automatically come back to the position. It had none of that. I had to wind the windows down. Right. So cars, if you take cars as an example, they evolve and innovate all the time, and people expect that. They expect the new model to have some sort of new aspect that's going to be good for them. And the same is true if you look at any business, really. And technology obviously is an enabler, never more so now than with AI. Right. And that's just another mind blowing sort of the next 5 years and what happens there and how you use that to continue to elevate. But even things like, we talked about concerts. If you go to a Coldplay concert or a Taylor Swift concert or any of the top artists, the production levels have changed compared to 10, 15 years ago. And then the expectation level that goes with that just keeps going up, and it just keeps going up. And if people are getting that experience, if they're going to Cirque du Soleil and being wowed out of their seats for a couple of hours, and then they go to your business. Yeah,
it's a great point.
You're constantly being challenged to try and find ways to fire the neurons and the dopamine and everything else. So
the key point there for the listeners, the cafe owners and restaurants and any industry that's listening, because we've got a big audience that listen to the show, is evolution, right?
Yes.
Is that we have evolved. So therefore, with evolution comes expectation.
It does.
And so be very conscious, to me, what I'm hearing, Martin, is be very conscious unconscious, again, there's that word, of customer expectation because of the evolution that has not. And the interesting point that you've just raised for me is that it's not just looking at a cafe and what it was and what it is. It's actually that their expectation level when you walk into your cafe can be formed of because of your Taylor Swift concerts, because of your Teslas or your Mercs or whatever
Every
car
experience.
they're driving has upped the ante. And if you haven't upped the ante in your cafe, then
you get left behind.
You'll get left behind.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point. So we fast forward then to the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
How do we get our teams motivated to firstly to understand that? And then how do we prompt them, train them, coach them? And you're about to do a whole heap of work with my team. But how do we prompt them, train them, and coach them to deliver on that expectation?
This is a great question, and you will find a theme, I think, in some of my responses around recruitment.
Yes.
Number one, because there's so much that you can do with your team in terms of inductions, training, recognition, reward. All of those components pretty much drive discretionary effort in terms of above the normal
Above the line,
This
yes.
is that's the job I have to do, but discretionary effort takes you to the point where you're delivering customer experience, guest experience, delight all the time, if you like. But if you hire the wrong people to start with, then all of those questions, they become harder, right? So, and this is one of the things that I've learned slowly over the last 30 years. It's been a gradual process, and it's kind of elevated every sort of role that I've had. I've gone deeper and harder on making sure that I recruit the right people.
Yeah.
To the point where with the theme park in Perth and that success there, we went from hiring, this is casuals, right? 1 in maybe 1.5 to 2 people when I first arrived, to 1 in 7. So we're turning 6 people away for a casual role, and we're hiring 300.
So you're getting tighter guidelines.
We're getting 300 or 400 people in every intake because some people return each year. So we end up with 500 employees, and our team, discreetly, we told our employees, we gave them a rating. So when they started, they were a 3. No, everyone's a 3. After 3 months, you're going to be re-rated, and you might be a 4 or 5. And this is what 4 or 5 looks like, right? So 3 months later, they become quietly a 4 or 5. 70% of our 500 casuals were 5-star employees.
Because they were conscious again.
But because
you
we
had that
dug,
outline.
but we also dug deep in our process to curate the right size of
people.
pool and communicate to them exactly who we were looking for. Those, I hate to use the word people pleasers, but the people who have that disposition who are just lovely people. They've got an aura around them of an energy.
Or the
They
sharp
just love
talkers.
people.
Yes,
and they're great talkers, but they're great at communicating. They know how to hold eye contact. They genuinely actually care about other people.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you wouldn't mind being stuck on a desert island with the rest of your life, right? Those are the people you need to be hiring. It's not easy.
Because you can teach the skill, but you can't teach the attitude.
That's right. But also, I read this somewhere once. It was a piece in a book about motivation. They said, how do you motivate people? And the author was arguing that I can't motivate you.
Correct.
It's intrinsic in you. It's a lockbox, effectively. Your environment, your upbringing, your peers, all that kind of stuff will help. But fundamentally, it's kind of wired into you. So you want to hire those people who are motivated to begin with. Because then, like you said, if you induct them properly and inspire them about what you're about and why the customer experience is so important, guest experience, and you train them how to do the functional part of it so they can act swiftly and they don't have to think too much about what they're doing, and they can then be free to interact with the customers. And then you recognize them. That's a really important
Big
part.
one.
And I think that a lot of businesses don't use that as a tool enough. And you'll hear people talking about reward and recognition. You'll hear me talking about recognition and reward because I think recognition is actually more important than reward.
Totally. I remember the recognition before, more so than the
much
award that
longer.
comes from experience.
Yeah. There's even research around bonuses, for example, that people, the effect, the impact of a bonus will have died away after about 3 days.
Yeah.
Because they've already pre-planned what they're going to spend the money on.
But
They probably
remember
already
the way you
spent it,
feel.
or they're about to spend it, or invest it, or whatever. But then it's like, I've still got to get out of bed the next day and go to work and do the same thing over and over again. But if I'm getting recognized for it, and in particularly publicly in front of all my peers, that's going to be really motivating.
So let's recap it for the listeners, and that is something that I've been talking about in 22 years of business is hire on attitude and teach skill. So Martin's explored that. So hire very slow. They went from 1 in 1.5 to 1 in 2 to 1 in 7 candidates. That's a big change. So set your parameters up very, very clearly at the beginning, and make your parameters in hospitality, especially around attitude, around natural disposition. How do they naturally present? Do they naturally show eye contact? And Do they engage? Do they look at you in the eye when they shake your hand?
That's right.
That sort of stuff. And then
it becomes
prepared.
and it's natural.
It's got to be natural,
And
right?
I probably ask, because there's probably people hearing this kind of going, yeah, but recruitment's really hard, right? It's a tough market, and I've got gaps in my roster and all that. Consider, an intake of 300 employees, casual employees in a theme park, and you're only hiring 1 in 7. That's 2,100 people.
That's a lot of candidates.
That's a lot of candidates, right? And we have a process. We built a process for funneling through auditions to one-to-one interviews and so on, and telephone interviews and that kind of stuff. But there was a lot of work went into that, right? And I had to take the team on a journey, I guess, in terms of that investment of time to make that right. And it took a little while, because initially they were just sort of used to 2 arms, 2 legs, your availability is good, your university, whatever, free on Saturday, come along, right? To being really
switched on and focused. But let's fast forward to what happens.
Yes.
And this is something that I say to cafes is, well, of course it's hard, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Correct.
Right? And you don't stand out.
That's right.
So if you do the hard work up front, as you've been saying, Mark, the results are what? I mean, what happened in Perth once you guys got it? And I remember your keywords to me that I want you to explain to the listeners when you said the experience starts in the car park. Right?
Yes.
So if you get it right up front with the hiring, and you get it right with the recognition and reward, then the listeners need to really understand that if you do that hard work, what actually then happens is doubling, tripling, whatever it is in your business growth. Talk us through that.
Yes. Right. So it was a 32-year-old business, and it had been going slightly sideways, stagnating a little bit, hadn't grown much in the previous 5 years. So it wasn't a new start business where you typically see high growth. It was the second lowest rated theme park or amusement park, water park in Australia, based on out of a criteria set of about 10 or 11. Luna Park Melbourne was lowest, still is. And we had 59% 4 and 5 star reviews at that point, right, in 2010. By the time we finished that journey of transformation, and this was very deliberate, we set out our stall as a team. We got together as a team and decided we wanted to be recognised as the highest rated theme park in Australia by 2020.
So you set that benchmark,
We set that vision to say this is what we're about, and the longer version of that was recognised by social media ratings, aggregated, and we achieved it by 2016. What we didn't do at the outset, and this is an interesting point I only reflected on quite recently actually, is that we didn't set out to double our attendances. We knew that we wanted to build the business. I was always, I was never very happy if we grew under double-digit numbers, right? But we certainly didn't start out in 2010 to say we're going to double our attendances in 5 years, which is pretty much the time frame we did it in. But we did say we wanted to be the highest rated. But consequently, what happened was
the numbers followed.
We ended up doubling our attendances. We doubled our revenue, right? I won't go into the numbers because that's that's confidential. But it's a significant business.
But it's an inspiring story for the cafe owners to understand that. Do the work up front.
Yes.
Hire the right people that become your billboards, right?
Yes.
They've got to enjoy what they're doing.
Yes.
Recognize and reward them for being above the line.
Yes.
Right? And then set a very clear vision of what you want them to show up for every day.
Yeah.
And that's a process that we talk about is why is your team showing up? And my team at the Commune, they are showing up to accelerate your potential.
Yeah.
They are showing up and their takeaway is I've just had an impact on accelerating somebody's potential.
Yeah.
And when you get that emotional engagement and that vision right, the numbers just follow.
Yes.
And that's a real key point that I want to hone in on for the listeners is to understand is, I still unfortunately talk to a lot of cafe owners. We've got over 1,000 cafe owners that are members of the Commune, right? Over 1,600 members in general. And they still measure success in revenue.
Yes.
Or they measure success in numbers. They don't actually measure success in emotional engagement, or they don't measure it in, say, their 5-star reviews. And I am going to ask you about the reviews in specific to cafes later because there's a lot of good things about it and some poor things about it. So just park that one there for the moment. But it all comes down to, because even reviews are a byproduct of emotionally engaging correctly, and making people feel valued. And an interesting one before I want to talk more about service-driven teams and the rest of it with you, because as I said, we've got an expert here, Mark Shaw, and I want the listeners to get as much from you as they can. But Isn't it funny? The last years we've run our Love My Cafe Awards.
Yes, I saw
right?
that. Yeah.
And there's no money, there's no commerciality to it. It's that you vote for your local operator, that you love their cafe, you reward them for loving it, but when you vote, you have to say why.
Right.
You know, and what we do with that information is obviously it's market research, but we bottle all of that up and then we hand it back to the cafe owners as, you know, marketing collateral.
Right.
Because then they can use that marketing collateral to tell the story. So obviously the Love My Cafe Awards, not only is it a great concept, it's rewarding and recognizing cafe owners, their customers, but it's giving them functional, you know, marketing material, emotional statements, collateral of comments to go tell their story.
Yeah.
But the number one theme in the 6 different areas, because it's all different by different councils, was community. Yeah, and it was community engagement.
Connection.
Correct. It was all emotions. It wasn't best coffee.
No.
It wasn't cheapest coffee.
No.
It wasn't about the food.
I'm glad you said that. I'm very glad you said that, because I think, you know, the customer experience is the sum of all the interactions. So it includes the coffee, it includes the scrambled eggs, it includes the service, it includes the lighting, it includes the air conditioning, it includes the toilets and the cleanliness and the signage and everything. It's everything that impacts the experience. And a great experience, a lot of the stuff subconsciously people don't even clock, right? If the air temperature's perfect, nobody notices, right?
Correct.
If the lighting's great, it makes you feel comfortable and particularly relaxed in the evening when the lights come down, you've got all that just right because you've spent good money on lighting design. Sound systems, you know, people go cheap on sound systems,
or
really,
no soundproofing.
Right, makes a big difference if you spend a bit of money on the right sound system. All of that, but, and this is one of the things I think I kind of honed in on with Adventure World at the start, was this study that the University of Melbourne did on 5 attractions in Melbourne, where they surveyed people and satisfaction. And they found one of the key findings was that people valued the interactions with the people that worked at the park as much, if not more, than the product.
Isn't that interesting?
So you can build a bloody great roller coaster, which my team and I did in 2013, I think, the Abyss roller coaster, which was named the best roller coaster in Australia by the founder of the Australian Roller Coaster Club. Believe it or not, there is one. And yet and it was a 2-year project really, and we had to roll our sleeves up and do most of it ourselves because we're a family-run business. We didn't have loads of project managers and that kind of stuff. We were literally out squaring doing all the quantity surveyors work and all that kind of stuff for them. But so we deliver it, and then we get to opening day and we start reading the reviews, and people are talking about our team members all the time.
Yes.
And my number 2 and I, Russ, was looked at. I remember one morning going, and you know, there are people commenting about how good the roller coaster is, but the thing is, they knew the roller coaster was going to be good because our marketing team did a great job of telling
that story,
and exciting people about this new product. So they did. That wasn't. We were exceeding their expectations because we had this amazing team. So every touch point you went through, whether it was in the car park, at guest services, coming in, buying a ticket, going through the rides, and the team were high-fiving the kids and talking to people.
So the emotional engagement started in the car park.
That was far more important. And you asked me the question at the outset about what's changed over the last 10, 15 years. I'll tell you what hasn't changed. It's people and people community. That people connection. And the value of that. And you can almost even get away with it. I remember, you know, days in my hospitality years when, you know, things didn't quite go right to plan and you got smashed with 400 covers on a night. And there were moments where it just kind of, but you could get away with it just by being super charming and lovely and apologetic and bought them a glass of wine or something to make up for the 40
rather than making excuses.
Yeah, that's right. Hiding away, right? So, yeah, that people connection part, and that sort of, you know, it's like when I go into a cafe that I haven't been into before, how many times, it's never happened to me. This has never happened to me. How many times have you gone into a new cafe and somebody goes, oh, you're a new face here. Yeah. Haven't seen you before.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, does it?
Yeah. What's your coffee? My name's John, right? Yeah. What's your name?
And these are simple things. I hope the listeners are listening to this. These are simple things that cost nothing. They're zero, but what they're doing is emotionally connecting with people.
That's right. And they're properly connecting. They're holding a gaze for a period of time. They're not just saying it and then looking away and moving on to the next thing. Or being on your phone and, you know, and the rest of it. And I want to touch that. You know, I want to touch on that. So let's go on a few points now.
because again, we are distracted, right? Let's set the platform. Let me, for a moment, I'll set the platform.
It's a good conversation.
We are a lot more distracted today than we ever have been, and a bit like the evolution.
Yes.
What our strengths become our shadows or our weaknesses very quickly. The strength is now we have access to data so quickly. We have things in our hand.
Yeah.
But the downside to that, the shadow to that, is that we get distracted easily.
Yeah.
And whether that's, in holding gaze with the customer or being bothered to ask a customer how they are, to acknowledge that it's their first visit.
Short attention span.
So one could take that into a strategy and is step one, get rid of the distractions.
Yeah.
Another one could be keep things very, very simple.
Yep.
But I'd love your take on, because there's an argument going on at the moment in cafes and restaurants. And you've got to be very careful now with the IR and HR laws of what you can and you can't do, which has also evolved. So yes, evolution is good, but there's certain things that evolve for the worse.
Yep.
And there's an argument going on at the moment is, do you let your staff have their phones on them during a shift, or do you not? So from an expert's point of view, and you've been around a lot longer than I have in the customer service space and that, if you were briefing me on your expert's opinion, right? How would you go about that? Should a cafe owner allow their staff to have their phone on them, where you see them, it's in their back pocket? What's your take on that?
Without understanding the legislation as it is today, right?
Yeah.
This isn't a question that anybody's asked me recently. I know it's a thing, and it's a consideration from emergency numbers, right? Somebody needs to contact me. I need to be contactable, right? Yeah. But it wasn't like those emergency situations happened 15 years ago, but people didn't have a phone on them.
That's right. Yeah.
But now they've got a phone on them. They've
very
got
pragmatic
an excuse
answer,
to keep the phone on them and keep it on. I think that it's a distraction, right? Yeah. It's a distraction from service, and anything that does that, I think I would say, leave it in your locker.
Yeah.
Leave it in your bag. Leave it in the car.
Yeah. And some of the tips we've done is
focused.
Well, have an emergency phone number, because that's the number one that comes up. Funny enough, and it wasn't a loaded question. I just wanted your natural reaction to it. But what we're finding now is people say no. And the legislation side of it, just FYI, and for those listening, it depends on what's in your contracts. So in your employee contract, it's what's in your employee contract and what's in your induction program. Yeah. So there's another thing for our listeners to pick up on. If you've got a policy in place in your induction program,
so you can legally,
you can totally. It's about the only legal thing that an owner's got is that the only the two only things that I would say an owner's got legally is their contract, employee contract and induction program, and then 6 months probation. And then after that, it all slides straight over to the employee, which is fine, because I always say, I want great employees, and I don't need a government to tell me how to look after them, because I know how to look after them, especially coming from an Italian background and hospitality.
Yes.
I look after people that look after themselves and look after the business and look after my customers. Yeah. So they're going to get preferential. But the phone thing is very simple. Make sure that it's in your inductions. Make sure it's in your policy. That's good. And make sure it's in your contract. Yeah. But then obviously the human side of it is that we say to people, well, if there is a reason that you need your phone close to you, let us know before your shift starts. Yeah. There is a phone number here for emergency, but if you need your phone, correct. But if you need your phone, then tell us. Yes. And that's the way we worked around it. Sick children. Well, totally. If my husband's sick, or my partner's sick, or my child, or my pet is at the vet, no problems. Let us know in advance if there's a reason why you need your phone. Otherwise, if it's business as usual, then get on. Because it's not us trying to be, for me, it's to get rid of that word distraction. Yes. I want my team members, and we've got a lot of moving parts at the Coffee Commune. It's not just the cafe. Yeah. That's the smallest part of our business, right? Yeah. It's talking to you about your breakdown of roaster, and you're coming in to roast coffee at our venue because we've got a world-class facility, or you're coming to plan a celebration, or you're engaging in one of our workshops or education, programs, and somebody's phone's ringing, and my staff phone's ringing. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Not appropriate, right? But it really is a way around it, and I really want to simplify it for listeners to understand. And coming back to Mark's point, which is so important, you don't know on what pretense and how difficult that customer in front of you has come to visit you. Correct. And we're seeing it now. Breakfast. Breakfast now for two is hitting $100 a head. Not a head, but $100 a couple. Yeah. Well, in some cases, that's 20% of somebody's wage.
Yes.
That they're coming into your venue to spend.
Yeah.
In a theme park, it's a week's worth of the wage.
Yes.
That they've had to save up over many times.
For possibly years.
Correct.
Right?
You know, but on the other side, somebody's walking in with a sick child, a sick parent, or somebody's passed away.
Yes.
And that's why I loved what you said is you don't know what that person's situation is when they come to you. You know, so be very conscious about how you serve them and emotionally engage. And tying it back to what we said, the number one standout feature for all votes, and there was something like 70,000 votes that were cast over a 4-week period, was community. And you hit it on the head with you said, in theme parks, it wasn't the actual attraction which costs the bulk of the money to build.
It's the interactions with the
interaction with the people. So talk us through. You're a cafe owner, right? You're sitting there. You're consulting. I know at the moment you're consulting with Westfield.
Yes.
So let's start with that.
Not Westfield.
Not Westfield.
But I have worked with Westfield before.
You worked with Westfield, right? So when you were doing some stuff with them, because they've been through the ups, the downs, and in between, right? And of course, don't share stuff that you can't legally share or contractually. But what were some of the key things you implemented for Westfield to up their game in terms of guest experience?
There were two areas where we trialled actually in Queensland and New South Wales, a couple of things, and they then rolled out nationally. One was around recruitment for casuals.
Yep. So
and there's a big push through for the Christmas period for the concierge desks and car parks and that kind of stuff. And so there was an elevation of that through the understanding of, because I remember going to some of the centres and asking some of the centre managers and the guest experience managers what percentage of their team were 5-star employees. And this happens in every business I go into pretty much. It's the answer I get is 15 to 25%. And my response to that is, well, you got 15 to 25% of your team are only 5 stars. How do you expect to smash the experience every time, right? And get 5-star experiences?
Yeah, good point there.
If you build that, and then I think they're in that process of building now to more towards sort of 30, 40% of even 50% maybe of their team now are 5-star, you're going to feel it as a customer when you go and ask the question because you're lost and you're looking for that particular shop and you get a lovely, warm experience. You remember, and people mention it, and they mention it in reviews, right? Yes. It's one of those things. It's like, they don't have to.
And it's important. So the takeaway there, guys, is, and I'll give the listeners a bit of a tip of what I do and have done for 20 years in owning businesses, over 20 years. But the tip there is actually rate your team, right? Benchmark your team. Yeah. What is a 5-star? How many of your
you don't
team?
have to put a badge on them. Like,
no, of course not. Of course not.
That would be a bit
well, I can
personal,
tell you, 90% of my
people
staff.
used to do that.
Well, 95% of my staff, and I've got a small team here of 35 compared to Di Bella Coffee, but 90% of my staff here are 5-star rating. Now, the way, and I said I share a tip, the way I rate my teams, and I'm very public about it, and they see it, is a traffic light system.
Yeah.
So my green lights are my 5-star. Yeah. My orange lights are my 4-star. Yeah. And anyone in a red box says, well, I think I better find a new job. And I say in 22 years of owning business, I've never had to fire anybody. Because the conversation with them is, you're in a red box right now. Yeah. What can we do to help you get to an orange box and then into a green box? Right. Because I'm going to give you my vision and I'm going to give you the parameters and I'm going to give you the resources, but I can't do the work for you. Yeah. And that simple chat normally says two things happen. Yep. They step up, or they step out. So people say, how could you have employed thousands of people across different businesses globally, because we've opened businesses globally, over 22 years and never had to fire one person? And that is, I promised a secret I'd share. That's how I do it. It's a green is a 5-star. A red is a 4-star. An orange is amber light is a 4-star. Yeah. Everything else is step up or step out. And exactly, but it's not a threatening position. No, it's simply, this is the vision. Yeah, these are the parameters. What can I do to help you
to get there?
Get there. Yeah, and if you're not prepared to do the work or don't have the right attitude, then it's going to look far better for you to move on.
Yeah,
than
and find a job that is more appropriate to you because you're just not suited. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just you're misplaced.
I had an incident, early on at Commune days where I said, there's nothing wrong with your skill set and your values that just don't align with mine and the company's. Yeah. Now, I'm the owner, you're a worker, I can't go anywhere. Yeah. And it was that simple self-reflection that the person went, okay, it's time to move on.
100%. But there are some people who are good at audit, right? And there are some people who are good at customer service, and there are some people that are good at, I don't know, packaging or whatever it is, right? And occasionally, and this is, I guess the onus comes back down to the owner or the manager who's doing the hiring to make sure that they hire the right fit. Yeah. And this is a responsibility not just for your business, but also for that person, because they're not going to succeed. Yeah. And then it's going to be prickly and painful, and eventually they're going to leave.
And
So
it becomes expensive anyway.
That's what I mean about that whole recruitment process. So I've got a 6-pillar framework, Ace, you mentioned at the beginning.
Yes.
One of those is recruitment.
Let's go through it.
There's 20 building blocks that are checked, like almost like a checklist of, I'll give you one, for example. Yes. Have you got the marketing department to have a look over your advert? Have you put 3 brains over this advert to make sure that all the language, all of the wording in there, spend a few hours on it, right, to make sure that it's going to hit the right, when somebody's reading that, they go, that's me. That is me. Perfect. Because then my candidate's going to turn up and I've already, part way on that journey.
Hard work's done. Yep.
Yes. But quite often you'll see, somebody's drafted it up and then they go, that'll do, right? And then they put it out there and then they get a whole load of people. And then the other thing that they do, you'll have seen this, I've seen this, where they overqualify the position. Yeah. So there's usually a description about who we are and what's the role. And then there's a bullet point of, these are the requirements we're looking for. Yeah. And then they disqualify 50% of the really good people because they haven't got a first aid certificate when you can just give them one, right? I mean, not give them one, but train them.
You can train them up. It's an hour process.
Put them on for whatever. Yeah. So, that's kind of, it's an inefficient process.
What else would you share from that framework? Because one thing that we do with our podcast too, we'll put up Mark's details and where you can contact Mark. And obviously he is a consultant. He is a consultant in this space. He's about to do some work for me and my team here. So our wonderful producer Gilberto will have the details of yours up on the podcast, so people can get in touch with you personally and explore it further. But a couple others that you'd like to share out of that framework, so that is your chance to sell yourself, my friend.
Yes.
Give them that hook, right? I mean, so a part of that ACE framework. So obviously the recruitment and the marketing department looking over your advert. What are some of the other stuff that you touch on?
Fine-tuning that. I won't go. Let me talk about inductions and I'll talk about recognition as well. So in the induction process, I think there's a really important step in terms of starting people off on the right foot. For them to understand, this is a moment for them to be able to understand why your purpose.
Yes.
And you should have a purpose.
Yeah. So they've got the job, they've done the first part, you've now hired them, and now you're inducting them.
And when I've done inductions in the past, we talk about why we picked you, because we want to put that responsibility back on your shoulders to say, hey, we selected you for these reasons, right?
Great point.
And now it's your turn to go out there and deliver on it because we, made a good decision, right? What we also did with the theme park inductions is they used to be mixed with all of the practical stuff, all the health and safety stuff and the bank details, and this is how you do that, and where's your locker and all that. And then we'd mix in the inspiring stuff. And then we realized that the inspiring stuff was kind of being
dumbed down.
Yes, diluted. The impact of it was being diluted by all the functional stuff, which is a bit boring, right? So we split it into 2 evenings instead. 2 3-hour sessions with the first 3 hours to do all the practical stuff, get that out of the way. Second night, it's a rah-rah night. Right? It's inspiring, and this is why we picked you, and this is what we're about, and this is what our vision is, this is what our purpose is. Give them some legacy stories about what great guest experiences look like. And we had some fantastic ones. Show them some inspirational videos. And then they'd all graduate. So we get one of our park sort of characters come in, Yanni the Dragon with his university board thing on it and its cloak and everything, and give them the certificates, take a group photograph.
It's all about emotional engagement.
And they walk out of there going, I'm ready to go, right? Just give me the training. Next step is the training, right? Recognition, I think, when I've been through, particularly with larger businesses, corporates, but I guess with smaller businesses too, there's not much in the way of a structured program of recognition. And if there is, it's very sporadic, and that your chances of actually getting recognized are very small, particularly the bigger the team. Right? But even with small teams, and particularly if you haven't even got a program, right? Because then it's just ad hoc, which is fine because, you can do it on the spot. But to have a structure, and one of the things I think that was very impactful for Adventure World was increasing the ability to be able to get recognized. So instead of having an employee of the month, we go employee of the week that would feed into employee of the month. We'd have a department of the month. Department of the week, feed into the department of the month, and then an annual
And
award.
that's for a big organisation, right?
Yeah.
But you can still bring that down into a cafe scenario.
Absolutely. Right? The other thing, this is, I think, a good example, fits any business. We introduced something called busted cards. And a busted card was a card that recognised when we busted somebody doing something great with a guest, right?
Okay. So it's a positive thing.
It's a positive thing. It's a spin, right? But on that card, the card might be issued to you for going the extra mile with a guest, and on that card would either buy you lunch or a cinema ticket or something like that. But it was very instant. Yeah. And each team leader, supervisor, manager had a bunch of these cards.
They were armed with it. They were empowered.
They would go around the park, and they wouldn't just give them out willy-nilly because you had to earn them. They had to maintain it. That's right. You've got to maintain the credibility of it. It's got to be genuine.
Yep.
But when you do, and you go, hey, you've been busted, right? Go and have lunch on us, or go to the movies with your girlfriend, or whatever, right? Yeah. Easy peasy, and that was one of the things we introduced to Westfield.
Well, it's important. I mean, what we do here, I mean, my wife runs our people and performance, and it's, again, we're a small team, but we run the employee of the month, but we've asked them what they want. So we said, do you want the employee of the month, which now feeds into employee of the year for us?
Yes.
And again, they designed that program.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that management said, and I'm going to segue to culture, right?
Yeah.
So you start to see a theme here. This wasn't something that I set as, the person who drives the bus with the hands on the steering wheel, and my wife who's my co-pilot with the people in performance, and my COO who's my other co-pilot. This was, hey team, how do you want to be recognised?
Yes.
Oh no, we want that. And then we took it one step further. Yeah. And we said, well, radio, give us some ideas of what you want the reward to be. What do you want it to be? Do you want it a bottle of wine out of my cellar that you wouldn't buy for yourself because I collect wine?
Yeah, right.
Or do you want dinner for two in a restaurant you wouldn't normally go to?
Yeah.
And in the beginning it was, we'd love to go to a fine dining restaurant, being Echo, which is, amazing. And then it was after I think it was 2 years, we had the Echo voucher, and then it was, we'd like a day off. And we went, not a problem. So if that's,
things like that.
But no, they get a full day off. So the employee of the month gets a paid full day off extra. But the point is, it doesn't matter what you give them. It can be a coffee, like you said. It can be a meal. It's driven by the right motivation.
Yes.
It's not a tick and flick. And more importantly, it's asking them, what we want to recognise you. So what does the recognition look like?
What does it,
and then what's the reward?
Where's
look
the value?
Like? So it's a great point that you made, because I mean, and it'll change, and it'll mean different things to different people. It's not mandatory to vote. That was another one that we talked about, because do I have to vote? No, you don't have to vote. No. We want you to keep it as natural.
Who wants to force to vote? Well,
we want you to keep it natural and inspiring, right? But I love that busted idea. I think we might even steal that one. Well, I'll let you talk to the team about that when you tour with my team. But I actually like that is that it's instant recognition. It's, hey, that person just stayed back and helped us move the tables.
But also you've got a mechanism for it too.
Correct.
Because I was just thinking while you were talking there's also that spontaneous sort of moment. And a lot of it's about the thought that counts, right? Yeah. The thought that counts in terms of looking after employees, or similarly, the thought that counts when you're trying to think of different ways to elevate the guest experience. So, and I can think of an example where with my number 2, I was talking about that roller coaster launch. It was a ball breaking sort of 3 months leading up to the launch, and he didn't spend a lot of time with his wife and his kids.
I can imagine.
Right. So eventually he gets a long weekend off, and he's going off to this beautiful spa resort or something. Discreetly, we find out where he's going, and then make sure there's a nice bottle of wine on ice in the room for them with a little card saying,
thank you.
Amazing what you've done. Cost us $100 or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not the cost, it's the thought, right?
No, and he probably still remembers. Yeah. Right. And every time you're looking for him to dig a little bit deeper, or that person to dig a bit deeper and help you out, always going to remember those things because you genuinely thought about them and then made some gesture that showed it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a thank you.
But in tying it together, Mark, and again, I've had people have asked me, how do you get so much out of your team? Why do you everyone, especially at Di Bella, we had 130 odd staff.
Yeah.
That was so engaged. We could never have built the company we did.
Yeah.
We had I said, the reason we built Australia's largest specialty coffee company in such a short period of time is it wasn't 1 or 2 people driving it.
No.
It was 130 out of 135.
Properly teaming.
Going hard. And it is about those numbers and momentum. And so for the cafe owners there, it is about building that momentum. It is about doing the things that Mark said. Get it right at the beginning, set the vision, hire right, market it right, induct them right.
Correct.
Recognize and reward them right.
Yeah.
And then the segue, which I always say, if you want me to give you a culture talk, the culture part is very simple. What to do to build culture is very hard. But we've just spoken about it, right? Culture is a byproduct.
Yeah.
And correct. Yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But to me, culture is a byproduct of what people feel when they're coming through your organisation. So if I walk into your cafe and somebody goes, "G'day, mate." Well, that to me is not a woman-friendly culture.
No,
that to me is too familiar. It's "G'day" or it's "welcome" or it's "how are you." You don't need to be calling someone ma'am or mate or
sir.
the rest of it or sir.
Yeah.
It stops at welcome.
Yes.
And
it's an authentic welcome.
Great to see you.
Yeah.
How's your day?
Yeah.
And there's some basic tips. But to me, what's your take on culture? Because, one thing I hate is walking into an organisation and they have their culture statements on a wall, and you won't see any of that here at the Coffee Commune. You'd never see them at Di Bella Coffee when I had that. You'll never see it in any of my businesses that I've built, right? Give us your take on what you've seen from experience.
Correct. It's organic, isn't it? It's not, like you said, it's not on a piece of paper. It's not on the back of the wall in the office or in the cafe itself. But there's this argument about, does culture trump strategy or does culture, strategy for breakfast? I think the two things are equally of high value, right? Yep. And culture is extremely important. But if your strategy is completely wrong and you've got a great culture, you're still eventually going to go out of business. Yeah. Right? You need to have both right. You need to have both right. I think it's a ridiculous argument. Yeah. But culture is super important. But it's also, like I said, it's organic. So one of the things that I'm very specific about is language. Yes. And you talk about people and culture, right? Far prefer that to HR, for example. Human resources, right?
Sorry,
really? Are we in that realm of where we employ people as human resources?
Yeah, to manage humans.
I was going to swear, but I won't. Right? Team members, employees. I will not use the word staff. Mm. Right. For me, staff and management, maybe it's my English background. It's kind of like, the Royals will get the staff to clear up the corgi's poo, right? Okay. We'll get the staff to do it, Yeah. It's a bit belittling, and it talks of this sort of, I don't know, here's the management and here's the staff.
There's segregation.
We're a team, right? So for the old CEO, the owner, the manager, whatever, team leader, you are a team member. Mm. As a CEO, I was a team member.
Yeah, you're still part of the team.
Still part of the team. And we all team together. And to your point about, to get momentum, to get, that volume of energy, you need to act like that. But to act like that, you need to talk like that.
Yeah. So and that's culture. Talk about, so what you just said to me, that is culture.
So you talk about people, employees, team members, team. I try and avoid staff and management as best as possible. Same with guest. Like if you're already referring to the people that come to your business as customers, that's transactional. And we all do it, right?
Very true. Very true.
I've got stuff in my blog about customer experience, but excuse me, really it's guest for. Yeah.
No, I like that. And that's been a key takeaway for me today is that language of guest. For me, the highlights, the guest and 100%. And that busted moment.
And I think there's a lot of people who think that doesn't even sort of translate outside of hospitality and leisure and any kind of people related businesses. But we had a conversation at Westfield about whether they're visitors or customers or guests, because Westfield doesn't actually have customers, really.
Correct, they don't. They're visitors, right?
Very few, maybe if you're getting your car valeted or whatever. But the customers are at Woolworths and Coles and Kmart and all that kind of stuff.
The customer's customer.
Yeah. So, but if you think of them as guests, then how does that affect your thinking about, what are we doing for them in terms of air conditioning? What are we doing for the sound system? Yeah. The scenting even. Do we do scent because we want to create this amazing place for our guests to come rather than customers?
Key takeaway there for the listeners.
Changes the way you think about things.
Yeah. No, it's true. And so that segues nicely. So key takeaway there is the language we use is so important. The words guest, replacing the word customer so it's not transactional. It's a bit like I talked at Di Bella Coffee. I didn't have salespeople. And they said, how did you build a company like that with no salespeople? I said, because sales is transactional. Yes. And sales is a byproduct of business development. Yeah. So I had business development managers which walk into you as a cafe owner and say, how can I help you build your business? Yep. And if they're helping you build your business, the sale becomes the byproduct. One is relationship-based, one is sale-based. So, we're aligned for many reasons.
I think it's really, really important. I remember when I first went to Adventure World, I was sitting in the boardroom looking through some reports, financial reports, and the report had PAX on it. Have you heard this term?
Yes, I certainly have. I've sat on many boards.
Comes from the passenger industry. Apparently, it's an abbreviation. So in the tourism industry, it's very much somebody's adopted this, and of course, everybody copies everybody else. So they think that PAX is cool. And I was like, "What's PAX?" And they go, "Well, that's the number of people." So you're talking about people, right? How do you build a guest-centric experience and culture if if you're diluting their importance down to a packs.
But how did it come? Explain that, because how did it come from the transport industry? I didn't.
From the airline industry.
Okay.
So it's short for passengers.
Okay.
It's an abbreviation for passengers, packs.
Yeah.
But it's somehow leaked into tourism.
Because they use it everywhere.
Lots of people use it.
Well, they use it everywhere.
Yeah. So
interesting, isn't it?
Like, am I packs?
Yeah.
Right. No.
Yeah.
I mean, customers kind of next level down.
Yeah.
Guest is
where you want to be.
Right. That's where you want to be.
So let's segue into reviews. Now we could talk forever, but we're running out of time.
Yes.
Reviews, do's and don'ts. Because I know they're important. I mean, there's another argument that in another discussion that constantly happens where people say you need to care about your reviews.
Yes.
And others say I don't care about reviews.
Oh, God. Well, I'm
firstly, explain the importance of them in terms of the emotional engagement.
Okay. Yeah.
And two, give them a couple of tips on how they can make sure influence their reviews to be right.
I'm glad you asked the question, because a lot of, we're talking about bigger organizations now. They'll have NPS and they have software that measures all this, or CSAT, customer satisfaction software and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan of NPS, to be honest, because I think most people on the front line find it confusing. Don't really know what 50 is, right?
Yes.
You've got an NPS of 50, big deal. What does that mean? Yeah, where's the context? You talk about, we're 4.8 Google rating, right? People know what that means. Yeah. And if you want to elevate and you go, well, how are we going to elevate? Well, maybe 4.9. Right, let's choose that as our target. Yeah. How do we get there? Well, we keep delivering 5-star reviews, and we'll get there eventually. The thing I like about Google reviews, TripAdvisor reviews, particularly Google reviews, because that's the most prominent used, is it's a very simple measure. It's 1 to 5, right? It's a Likert scale, 1 to 5 rating. But everybody understands it. Your team understand it. When they get a 3 or a 4 or 5, they understand what that means. They don't understand NPS. It's also volunteered. And this, you can, and I would encourage people to actually solicit reviews from people with a QR code.
Hey, if you've had a great experience, or
give it to us, right? Because the more feedback you get, the more you can fine tune your experience.
Correct.
Like even the bad stuff, right?
Yeah,
they're gifts. Yeah.
I agree. I say to them, I want to hear the bad stuff more than the good stuff, because I can improve on the bad. I can't improve on the good,
absolutely.
so to speak.
So if I'm going into a new business to do some work with them, the first thing I do is look at the Google reviews and I click lowest. So it brings up all of the negative stuff, because that's the opportunity. That's where the opportunity lies. It's not in the 5-star stuff. Just keep doing that, right?
And the key is to read the review.
Your air conditioning's not quite right.
Yeah,
have a look, right? Let's see what we can do, right? Because you probably can. All that stuff. There will be a number of themes that you're not getting right.
But here's one for you, Mark. How do you fix one that says 1-star review? And this is not hypothetical. This is a true one. My free coffee wasn't a large one; it was a small one.
Understand, right? This is where I've gotten to, and bear in mind, I've been getting reviews for 30 years, right? On
yes,
team, whether leading teams or whatever, or just dealing with complaints face to face in the moment. That 5% probably of customers are, whatever term you want to call
don't
it, right?
matter.
They just accept that they will never be satisfied, and just accept it, because the moment you accept that and move on and stop sweating it and getting frustrated about it, or even where I've been in the moment in a restaurant where someone's complaining, but you can tell that they're making it up, because we can go back and go through the whole journey and talk to the kitchen, look at the ticket times and go, well, it wasn't 45 minutes, it was 20. They're exaggerating. Everything's been exaggerated. They're just trying to get a discount. Yeah. And there's a waitress there, a waiter fighting the corner for the business to say, I'm not going to give them a discount. Don't give them a discount, Mark. Don't give them a discount. And I'm like, it's £30, $30, whatever, $50. Really, just let's do it and move on and focus on delivering a great experience for the other 95%.
For the next people, and that's a good point.
You can get dragged down into it, and mentally, it has this sort of.
It can affect the rest of your 5%.
Attitude towards the other guests.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It's impacted by those negative.
And they shouldn't. And that's the key takeaway: is don't let the 5% of bananas out there.
Correct.
And people the listeners understand my terminology. Don't let 5% of the bananas out there impact the 95% that are good. And one thing that what we do, we leave the comment there. Because I say anybody that reads that 1-star review, because they do that, they'll read the 1-star review. And anyone that reads it and goes, oh, geez, this person is valid giving them 1 star because the free coffee should have been large, not small. Well, I don't want you in my business. No. So you've actually done me a favor. You see? And I mean, the customer that I do want is the customer that goes, what an ungrateful, person.
They'll stand your corner for you. They'll get it. They'll get it.
But the key there is focus on the 95%.
Yeah.
Don't let the 5% drag breaking. But the other key
change
is
your attitude.
don't have the attitude of reviews are not important, because they are.
And absolutely. And excuse me, Google's own research tells us now that more than 73% of people will go to Google to do their homework on where they're going to go, what they're going to spend their money on, what they're going to spend their time on before they actually go. And the higher the transactional value of that service product, the more research they're going to do. They will on average read 7 reviews.
Yeah.
Right. And anything below 4 as an aggregate rating, they're probably not going to bother with your business. Correct. And anything, the higher you go above 4, the more likely they are to be interacting with your business and giving
and let's face it,
their
we've all
money.
done it.
It's a trust thing.
I've done that as well.
Of course.
I was impressed the other day. One of Michael Tassis's restaurant, he's got plenty of them.
Yeah.
He's got 3,500 reviews and he's sitting on a 4.8. And that's just unbelievable, to me. And I know Michael, and he runs a great operation.
Yeah.
And I'm just got a smile on my face saying, well, isn't it wonderful? The 3,500 people and the rating is still 4.8.
Yeah.
So of course, you take that then and you market it.
Yes.
Because that's a seriously high rating.
Well, that's what
with that many reviews.
Yeah, it's known as social proof.
Yeah.
Right? The proof is there in the social ratings, right? And I think in terms of responding to them, I do see there's some do's and don'ts. I've actually got a
let's go through it. Don't get negative on them. Don't go nuclear on them.
I've got a 1-pager on this, right? So the first thing you do is you respond to every single review. You don't just respond to the good ones or the bad ones. Some people just respond to the bad ones. It's like, okay, well, if a guest came up to your cafe counter and started complimenting your team, or the product, you wouldn't ignore them.
Yeah, good point.
Why would you ignore them online? And in fact, that's even worse because it's amplified because everyone can see that you've not bothered to respond. They've taken the time out of their own schedule, busy life, to write a review. The very least you should do is respond.
Yeah, good point.
Right. The first thing you then do is make it personal, whatever the moniker is. Sometimes they're it's a bit of an awkward moniker, right? Because there's some weird ones out there, but do it anyway. Then thank you for choosing to come to my cafe, right? Because they have a choice.
Yeah.
That should be the first thing. Yeah. Then it's thank you for taking the time to give us your feedback. Then you address the specifics. Then I thank them again for choosing to come to us. Yeah. I don't say hope to see you again soon because that's just like, I hope you come back and spend some money with me.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. Well, you're not humanizing it. Yeah.
Let them come of their own volition, right? Or maybe we look forward to seeing you another time, but don't say soon because that's just like come back and spend some more money with me quickly.
Great point.
And then sign off.
Yeah,
that's it. But do that every single time. But
and one thing we do too is if they mention staff or specific, and in ours it's easy because even if they don't mention the staff, we know the department.
Yeah.
Then we actually share it on an all staff app, not just that department. We've got an all staff Teams app, and it goes to everybody. So the people in production can see what's happening in the cafe. The cafe can see what's happening in
that recognition.
In the membership department. Yeah. It's that recognition.
That recognition piece.
And that to me is community. That to me is culture.
Yeah.
Now I could talk to you all day. And listeners will understand why this will be one of the longest podcasts I've done because you've got so much wisdom and knowledge and obviously we're aligned. But I'm going to give you your last question.
Tough question.
Is your tough one.
Is a tough one.
Yes. Give me, if you could give the cafe and restaurant owners that are listening one practical step to lift their guest experience this week, so something immediate that will really move the needle, what would it be? So one thing that a cafe or restaurant can do immediately to lift their guest experience this week?
I think that's a really, really tricky question given the time frame, if I'm really honest. Because if I was thinking about that and trying to give a really good response, it would be more about what could I do this month maybe?
If this was easy, you wouldn't be here, my friend.
No. Okay, so I
wouldn't have an expert.
I'll stick to a week.
Have an expert. Tell me the week.
The first thing I would do is get together with whoever my number 2 is, or my partner, somebody trusted, right? Somebody can have an honest, open conversation about the team, and I'd sit down and do that exercise about which one of these are 5-star, who's the 4s, and who's the 3s.
So rate the team.
Start working. I mean, you do it privately. You don't have to share that with them. I would then potentially have conversations with the 5-star employees and very subtly talk to them about you want to raise the We want to raise the energy, and we want to raise and elevate the guest experience. And we've identified you as the people that can help build the team and lift the rest of the team.
Love it.
And be role models, right? I want you to really elevate. Like have you seen the movie Spinal Tap?
Yeah.
Where they go to turn the volume up to 11.
Yes.
Do that, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then everybody else will pick up, and their volume levels
becomes
will go
infectious.
up 9, right?
It becomes
yes,
infectious,
and of course you do it as a business owner, right? That's where every business owner should be at 11 in that volume. So, and then move as fast as you possibly can towards, respectfully moving those people along. Have conversations.
Improve or remove.
That's right. Have the conversation about, hey, this is where your gap is, right? We've just had a bit of a review of your performance. This is what we'd like to see over the next couple of months, and then work with them on that. But like you said, if they can't improve,
let them opt out.
It's time to. Yeah.
No, I love
and
it.
Most people will
and
opt out.
And that is very practical and can be very done very quickly. And the other one I'll add for the listeners is 3 words that you want your customers to say about you. And I say that to my teams. I say, what is 3 words? But they have to be emotional words. They have to be emotionally engaging words. What actually emotionally engages a customer. So I challenge my team all the time across the different departments. Yeah. If I ask somebody that you dealt with, what would be 3 words that they would say about their interaction with you? And what I'm doing is making them conscious, and I'm working from the outside in. So I'm actually working from the customer's perspective. You want the customer to say, I feel care, which was our number 1 at Di Bella Coffee. It was nothing about the coffee.
No.
Right? It was always about your team cares about my performance.
Connection.
They care about me. They care about the product. They care about our business growing.
Yeah.
They care if they stuff an order, they fix it.
Yeah.
They care.
Yeah.
So that was a big one for us, right?
Yeah.
The other one was that it was experience. Every time we interact with your team, it's an experience. We're learning something, or they're teaching us something, or they're sharing something. So, what is the 3 words that you want somebody to say about their interaction with your cafe or restaurant? And that way you're starting from the outside in.
Yeah.
So that'd be my tip to the cafes and restaurants.
I think I'd add to that, just because we haven't talked about it. If you haven't already got a purpose statement, which describes what...
Build one.
Understand it should be less than 7 words, because it needs to be memorable, and anything over 7 words people can't remember.
Totally.
Understand, so simplicity is great. Keep it to... It should describe the emotional impact you have on your guests.
Yeah. Well, Coffee Commune, accelerate your potential.
Yeah.
It's 3 words, right? And it's your potential is the emotion.
Everyone remembers
and
it.
accelerating is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? But potential is the emotion.
Yeah.
Everyone has potential within them.
Yeah. And if you look at Disney's, which I think was one of the first purpose statements ever created back in the 1960s, 3 words: we create happiness.
Yeah.
And it's something that everybody who works in the organization, whether an electrician, a painter, a performer, a ride operator, somebody at admissions, they all understand this is what we're here for. This is our purpose. This is our raison d'etre. It's not to make money. That's a byproduct.
Yes.
But if you understand, the theme park in Perth, our version of the Disney's version was we create happiness and magical memories, because we sort of factor that. There's a value in the memories that people take with them.
Yep.
Dad on his deathbed in hospital, taking his last breath, thinking about the time he went to Disney World with the family. That's one of the highlights of their life that stays with them forever.
And it's a great point to finish on. The listeners know that my personal mantra is life's measured in moments.
It is.
It's not measured in possessions. There's no removalist truck following a hearse to a funeral, my friends.
No.
But Mark, thank you for being on the show.
Absolute pleasure.
I look forward to you doing some work with my team. For those that are listening and want to know more about Mark, where can they find you?
www.shawthing.ch. Shaw is SHAW. THING, CX.com.au.
Perfect. We'll post that up.
LinkedIn.
We'll post that up, and you can find Mark on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
I thank you for being on the show.
Absolute pleasure.
Listeners, as you know, that's been one of our longest ever podcasts, and you can see why. Some great nuggets. And you know what I love most, listeners, is what we spoke about with Mark is none of what we spoke about costs money.
No.
Have a think about that.
Yeah.
There's no money that you need to go and spend on fancy campaigns. It's get your recruitment right. It's do it up front. Make sure you're very clear about the vision. Make sure you have a purpose statement. Make sure you're clear on your inductions. Be clear on your recognition,
feedback.
Reward.
Yeah.
Focus on the feedback. Get onto those reviews. Some great nuggets there, Mark. Thank you again. For the listeners, until next time, you've been listening to Phil Di Bella. Go and be the best you can be. This has been There and Done That, where we bring great people that have done great things for you to learn from and accelerate your potential. That's a wrap for today. Keep listening for more episodes of Been There and Done That. The Coffee Commune is here to help accelerate your potential. We want you to be better tomorrow than today. Until next time, you've been listening to Phil Di Bella. I'm the founder and managing director of the Coffee Commune, a place where the coffee community comes to collaborate.